Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday, February 3rd, and welcome to Esports Playmakers. We are joined today on the virtual desk by Bubba Gaeddert, the Executive Director of the Varsity Esports Foundation. Bubba, thanks for coming on the show, and did I pronounce that right?
Paul, you did great. Thanks for pronouncing that correctly. Thank you. Yes, it's an Oklahoma name, and I'm in Kansas now, where we came from. So luckily, you got it right.
I'm impressed with myself. I'll pat myself on the back for that one. Before I begin, I just want to give a quick shout out for our sponsors, Equinox, HyperX, Human Mode, and Click Gaming for their continued support of OCV Esports and this show. Now, Bubba, the first question on the show is all about your story. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what your role is in your organization and how you got involved in esports?
Well, big shout out to Oklahoma City University, and thank you, Paul, for letting me be here. I grew up just maybe a few miles north of the campus, actually. I grew up in Oklahoma City, and I went to John Marshall High School. And my dad he was manager of many franchise Radio Shacks around Oklahoma City University, actually, some on 63rd and May and Quail Creek, other areas. So that's kind of where my nerdiness started, and why I have so many nerdy things in my background is video games and remote control cars and building Tandy computers back in the 80s. That's where my story kind of starts, and it kind of all culminates to what I do now after 20 years in traditional sports, working with the YMCAs in Oklahoma City, Kansas City, sports commissions, Chamber of Commerce, Parks and Recs, being an educator at a NAI University here in Kansas City for the past 8 years, teaching in traditional sports, but always being a gamer and a nerd and video producer. I'm a Twitch streamer for the past 4 years. So yeah, my story is kind of all over the place, but it's very much built who I am in the nonprofit space for those 20 years to help serve families and help support those in need. And that's really what our foundation does. And I'm excited to be on the podcast because I know you guys are doing great things at Oklahoma City University, and Jeff's doing some really cool stuff. And I got to come see your lab. I think it was like December of 2019.
Oh, really?
So last game there.
Mm-hmm. So you've seen the Jeff's lab, which was the gaming animation lab, and we're actually building a new one. So maybe I'll have to get you to visit some other time in the near future.
Please, yeah,
check that out too.
I see a lot of cool stuff on social media about what you guys are doing as well.
Anything else you wanted to add to that, or we can just jump into the next question?
I mean, do you want me to talk about what the foundation is, or is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So really, out of necessity, our nonprofit was born. Here, I was in Kansas City working for the Sports Commission. I had just started streaming in 2017, and I started running an esports event that was online events through the Sports Commission that I was working at here in Kansas City, and I was hosting like League of Legends and Hearthstone and Fortnite tournaments, through which my normal everyday job was to help bring football and soccer events to town. Mm-hmm. So I found some partners to bring an esports and board gaming event to town, which they were all local folks, but we were trying to bring, it's supported by tourism dollars is where I was working with. When people come in for sporting events, that gas and those hotel taxes go to help support what we're doing. And so I found the niche of like esports, and I met some really amazing people, had a really great 800-person event with Smash and Fortnite and all this really great stuff. And those online events led up to people coming to the event in person and playing the championship. And it was just a really fun experience. But I met these great people like Ramsey Jamul from Midwest Esports in Wichita. I met Abdul Rashid Yahaya with Local Legends Gaming, other great people. But I met the founder of the High School Esports League, which is the largest and longest running league for high schools in the world. And I sat down with him, and I looked at his map of, I think it was like 14 or 1,500 schools, high schools at that time. And I said, look, all these pin dots in your map are like in suburbs for esport clubs in high schools. Like, what about the kids in the inner city and the ones in rural who I grew up inner city, Oklahoma City, and I recall not getting the correct kind of funding for everything that we wanted to do growing up at John Marshall High School. And like, how do we support them? So out of necessity, the foundation was born with this idea of, let's create some sort of nonprofit. So 2018, December, I was still working at the Sports Commission. The foundation was created paperwork wise. And then September of 19, I became the first and only employee of the foundation. And I've been running it ever since, and just really connecting people and helping with grants to those low income schools scholarships for students to go compete at the higher education level, or just compete in the high school level and use their scholarship to go to Oklahoma City University or other universities to do any degree. And then lastly, it's all about being proactive in the space. Our foundation is trying to help with toxicity and mental health and cyberbullying and health and wellness, but not creating anything, but finding people who are doing good things and saying, follow these people, listen to them, use them as a resource. Like, we don't need to create anything. We want to say these people are good. And that's kind of how we've evolved.
But you guys are almost like an amplifier for voices of good in the scene right now.
I have been called loud, but an amplifier is a great term for that. Yeah. We like to talk about what people are doing.
Very cool. Well, you asked if I had another question. You basically just fully answered the next one. That was perfect. So we're going to jump into the third, which is kind of about Kansas City. So I found it really interesting. Kansas City hosts a whole bunch of esports stuff, and normally it's like you see so much stuff in California. Like I think it's like something like 80% of the industry is located in California, but Kansas City has got Varsity Esports Foundation, you guys, NACE, the Generation Esports, who runs the high school esports league, and I think one other group that I'm forgetting.
Middle school esports and
esports.
Junior college, NJCAE, and a couple other communities they have. Yep.
And then the Kansas City Pioneers, and then maybe more that I'm not aware of. But
there's 70 of us in a coalition here in Kansas City under the Kansas City Sports Commission.
That's awesome. What makes Kansas City so attracted to these orgs?
I don't know if there was people that moved in. It was just it was the Midwest. It's the new Midwest for people, and there's a lot of tech companies here. Just like every kind of town has their tech corridor, tech kind of following. As in Oklahoma, and as I grew up in Oklahoma, the cost of living is a lot lower than being out in Silicon Valley and running a business. Is there a lot of tech companies here? Like there's Garmin and there's Honeywell and Sprint and those big kind of tech companies that probably have a lot of gamers. So out of that, I'm sure born Cerner. Cerner is like a big medical data provider, like almost all hospitals use. And one of the guys at Cerner, he created a local thing called KC Game On, and I have worked with him many years. I've been a lead shoutcaster for his events in the past, and those kind of people who really just, it was born because there's people here who want to do video games and esports. And I think it's just there's people, I don't know if they really just move in, it's just they're here, right? And I think really COVID kind of expedited a lot of stuff for everybody, right? I think we talk about that a lot in esports industry. We talk about that as just as much as Netflix and toilet paper and Zoom prices gone up, right? So or stocks or whatever, not like GameStop or whatever. But the idea of those, COVID has expedited things, right? And it made especially schools that we work with all across the country see esports as a value rather than an obstruction to education, and realizing, wow, these other 3,000 some odd 4,000 high schools and middle schools, and let's say add the 2,000 colleges into that, are now participating in esports as a program, as a recreation, or as varsity. Like, we should be involved in it too. And so I think Kansas City realized that with the Sports Commission, and just as much as Atlanta is doing a really good job, they want to call themselves the new Hollywood, which I think is more true than the esports mecca of the United States. So it's just, I don't know, Kansas City just got some cool people. Cool.
It's awesome to see the growth. We've kind of seen like a couple smaller cities have kind of seen massive growth, I think, in tech. It's just one of the many cities that are also experiencing that. So you touched on it a little bit, that COVID's kind of expedited some of the growth in Kansas City. In Oklahoma, it's actually kind of been a little bit of a detriment for some of our high schools here. We have the OESL, which is the Oklahoma Esports League. It's just a local group, so it's all the Oklahoma schools in one high school esports league playing against each other. They saw a decreasing participation in the last year. And I'm kind of asking you for a miracle cure here if you know of anything, but how have you managed, or how have the other programs managed to retain some of their groups? Because the main reason they're leaving is because their teachers can't meet with their students anymore, and they can't make sure that they're practicing like the right way, or they're just having troubles coordinating and getting people into matches. Do you have like any solution or any ways that some of these places kind of stem the bleeding of caused by COVID?
Before COVID, I did talk to wow, his name is blanking me.
Todd Borland.
Yeah, Todd. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a lot of good calls. I mean, he at that time he was running the league, through Excel spreadsheets and getting schools to participate, but not charging, and trying to help we were trying to find a way to get some Nintendo Switches to the schools.
Yeah.
And I came down and I met with the Oklahoma Secondary School Education Athletic Activities, whatever it's called, activities department, which is honestly like a stone's throw from my house, where my parents still live, and met with them talking about esports. This is still all before COVID. This is like last January. And how could we help raise the bar in Oklahoma for maybe being a sanctioned sport, which some states some kind of have. They don't really say there's a sanctioned sport for esports, but there's not really. It's not as much as it's called that, or it's an official. There's technically not an actual term used correctly, as we hear in news differently. But I remember just even meeting with that athletic director over the whole state. He said, what sports do, or what games do we sanction? Actually, which games do we sanction? And I said, all of them, or any of them. It doesn't matter. Yeah, you may not want shoot 'em up games, but you can't just have track and field and only have shot put. You got to have the different fields. So I think when it was at Oklahoma, and when it comes to the middle school, high school, and college space, I mean, the college space is still vibrant. You guys are doing great. The high school space, I mean, there's 50 to 60 high schools in Oklahoma that play with HSCL, so they're still competing on a national level. The local level, and I think you have a question about that. I mean, I can answer a little bit here. Is the local level can be hard to scale. The local level can be hard to scale when you just are using Excel spreadsheets and your teachers that have other full-time jobs. There's states that are doing it great. Wisconsin, California, Texas has a group. Texas has like 4 groups that are all either teachers or HSCL, or that are all, completely going full forward with esports. But Texas is also its own animal and its own country, for that matter. What's the miracle cure for Oklahoma to be involved in that? Well, it honestly, unfortunately, comes down to the same conflict we get all the time, is the objection to gaming in schools. That's where it happens. I mean, you still have, if you look at percentage amount of schools that are participating or have participated in esports in Oklahoma, it's a big percent, but it's not all of them. So you have the case studies, let's just say, the availability that it works and it's helping kids, and the GPA is going up and attendance is going up because kids have something to belong to. But when it comes to league management, it's hard to scale. It's hard to scale by yourself, especially if you're a nonprofit, or you are a bunch of teachers. And the teachers have teachers have students in mind, just like many big leagues do, students first. But it's not easy. I mean, the online event I ran for the sports commission for like 6 weeks, it took me over and over multiple tries to get the rules correct, because every time we played, there was some new rule of somebody breaking somebody's wall in Fortnite, and how did they sabotage them, and I didn't have that rule in. And so it takes, just as much as I wrote rules when I was at the Y, every time a new thing would happen with a lateral pass on flag football, we had to add a new rule in.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a lot of management, and it's a lot of building partnerships and relationships that it's hard to do alone without an organization. It's doable, and I think it should be doable at the local level, the regional level, the state, and the national and the international. It should be done because it deserves it. But it's the problem in our industry is the segmentation with us all going down the same road in different cars, heading the same direction for the same goal, not realizing we could carpool and do this better.
Yeah, I'm loving these. You're handing me the perfect segues into the next topics, because the next question is about just that, the fragmentation and the segmentation. Because in Oklahoma right now we have the OESL, which is the high school league, Oath League, which is this kind of newer league. It's more of like a youth league for middle schoolers, but it's also expanding into high school. There's grassroots organizations that host either just open tournaments or sometimes high school targeted tournaments, usually for free. And then there's also a professional team in the space, Equinox, which has created a developmental and training program to start bringing in students who want to learn or kind of become like hit the next level of esports and really like train and drive and just improve at games and things like that, and outside the game as well in physical and mental health. But there's so many all these groups like in this space now. Is there one group that should be responsible for the creation of this local league?
We're too young. We're too young of an industry. We're too young of an organization. So look, growing up in Oklahoma, there's a church every neighborhood, right? There's a Taco Bell or a McDonald's every couple miles. There's enough room for everybody, I think. I'm also an agnostic nonprofit who gets to work with everybody and anybody, and I don't have to choose favorites. I want to help everybody out. Because a rising tide raises all ships, right? And the idea of having everybody involved and invested, just as much as maybe somebody wants to go to a particular church or denomination for a reason, or maybe the carpet color isn't right or something, so they choose a different church, which is a common reason why we all probably changed churches as kids. Or the pastor went too long, right? He went to 12:01. It was lunchtime. So the idea of is there somebody to come out on top? I mean, yeah, the kids need to come out on top, and we should all. Esports is a shrinking and growing industry where somebody builds something, then nobody is doing it, or they're the first ones to market with it, and then they get acquired, and then they combine with something else, and then there's shrinkage of there's too many groups like this, and somebody's going to come out on top, and that's just esports. That's the model right now, where especially the business side, the scholastic side, there's going to be that. There's some big groups out there who are doing things not the correct way, who may be doing big money, dumb money things. And that's unfortunate because it's not giving everybody the right credibility. So everybody just needs to learn how to work together better, and also not feel like they're competing, but they're all trying to help the kids. If we align our thoughts, and we talk a lot about traditional sports and esports, the parallels, right?
Yeah.
Well, the academics will say esports is a good parallel, but not to compare, but to learn from, and let esports be its own animal, its own beast, its own thing, just as much as colleges. I mean, Oklahoma City University should have an esports department, right? Or all colleges have it, instead of being under student life or athletics or IT or engineering or campus
athletics in some cases.
Athletics, yeah, right. Exactly. So they need their own thing because they are something different. And there's competition, but there's IT and there's STEM. And I know we'll talk a little bit about curriculum in a bit, but I think there are a lot of big players who've been around for a while. There's a lot of big players who've been around for a short time, and there's people who are getting into it. It's American to be. It's okay to have people get into stuff and to create stuff. They should.
Yeah.
But it's also a learning process for them, just as much as it was for me to figure out how to run an esports tournament my first time, when I knew how to paint lines and hire refs and manage parents on the sidelines, but I could not manage 15-year-olds in Indiana learning how to friend somebody so they could play duos in Fortnite. Like, that was a tough conversation on Discord, right? Yeah. So there's room for everybody, and we should all be investing in kids. We should be, if you want to make a bigger splash, invest in kids.
That's really the way to put it. It's kind of like, it's just the competition argument. The more out there for the people to choose from, the more likely they're going to find something that fits them the best.
And schools may not want to play somebody in a different state. That's great. You don't have to, but when you play with the same group of schools or same group of teams in a football league, sometimes you want to travel and you want to go play another state to get different competition. I've heard this for years in traditional sports, when school or coaches, they got really good for our rec YMCA league, and like, we want to play some new kids because we're beating all these.
Yeah.
So it's a natural transition, but luckily with esports, you can play in 5 leagues at once if you wanted, and play the same game or multiple games, and you're not restricted, which is nice. And some are free, some cost, but some give scholarships, some don't. So
I think that's a great way to put it all. I was kind of talking about another individual about kind of, is there a way to defragment the industry? Would it be a good thing? And kind of talking about, is there any organization any organization or group at the high school or middle school level or collegiate level that's really elevating everyone and kind of doing it right? Do you have any like
Yeah.
leagues that you, or groups that you think that colleges should all be joining right now? Things everyone needs to keep their eye on. Any insights that you can give us into that?
Well, I mean, TESPA obviously closed down.
Yeah.
Some of us knew it before the news. That was they were early on group, and those guys have now started a new venture. The guys who created Nace, I mean, Brooks, Brooks is great. I mean, we're on the executive board for the Kansas City Esports Coalition.
Mhm.
He would be the, I know he doesn't like this term because other people use it, but like, the godfather of Varsity Esports League, right?
Yeah.
For colleges. But there's been, 3 other big groups that have come out during that same time. CSL is great, but now their whole team is now moved on and don't know where that's going to go, led by different people. The UEA out of Wichita here, Unified Collegiate Esports Association, they're a great organization that's growing. And the NJCAA and the ECAC, those are great organizations for esports. But then there's like 10 other groups that are just like conference based, or they are regionally based, and or they're just finding colleges whenever and wherever, because you can literally make a Battlefy. You can literally make a Battlefy and run a tournament. There's no restricting you to doing that. Battlefy is not saying, well, quit doing this. They're saying, hey, how can we help? And challenge and tournament. I mean, once you get to a certain point, they're probably going to look for partnership and other things, as they do with many orgs. But on the college space, I mean, there's a lot of great groups. Some cost, some don't. And some are for varsity, some are for recreation, some are both. In the high school space, similar thing. I think the people doing it right, NASIF is doing a good job, and they always have been. As they started as Orange County Esports years ago, and before that were under HSCL playing, and then now they've created, which we've been pushing for a while. We've been talking about this for a long time in the scholastic space, is the Worldwide Scholastic Esports Federation, which is led by Todd Harris out of Atlanta, who runs Skillshot, who used to be over whatever the studio is that created Smite.
Oh, why am I also blanking on it? I should know this one.
That organization. We'll come to both at the same time here sooner or later. And so I love that, because it's not like they're trying to regulate anything, but we're working with the British Esports Association, both of us, the foundation, us and NASIF, and like, how do we all do something better? There's groups like parents. There's a coalition of parents of esports who their parents are pro esport players, like Septic, the kid Septic, his dad is a founder of that organization, and they're doing great things to help the parents who their kids get sponsorship, request DM saying, hey, you want to sell these knives, which is pretty much like the same thing as, hey, you want $100, we'll get you 5,000 followers. Like there's predatorial stuff out there, or sponsorships. There's a lot of great people doing a lot of great stuff, but we are in this sense of, here's what the defragmenting and the segmentation you talk about. For the past year and a half, I've had, I don't know, thousands of phone calls, it feels like, with different organizations. And I'll talk to somebody in Florida, and they'll say, yeah, we're the only person doing X. And I'll say, well, did you know about the group in California? Like, you guys should connect. Oh my gosh, that'd be great. That happens on a weekly basis because people don't know each other, because
because it's so fragmented.
And I'll say the biggest organization I'm lucky to be a part of is the Esports Trade Association. Now, they've been really focused on the business side, which too many people are focused on the business side of esports, because that's where money is, right? And that's where I want to get my name on the back of this arena, and Coca-Cola wants to be in these Twitch commercials. Like money. But they have changed gears quite a bit this year, and even I'm on the education committee with a couple other guys in the education space, and the focus is really students now. How do we invest in that, because they're the ones who are going to be future consumers of all these sponsors, right? So there's a lot of there's no silver bullet right now. It's people need to talk more, and people need to realize they're not in a silo, not on an island, and they aren't the only ones doing it, and or saying we're going to be the first something in this county or this state. Okay, maybe, but you need to talk to somebody next door at a state and see how they did it and learn. I mean, I've dealt with this for years with our YMCA is doing this, our sports commission is doing this, our FCA organization, we're the only ones doing this, and we don't know how to do this right, or we have these issues. Well, so does this one down the street. They can help and you guys can figure it out together.
I guess in Kansas City with so many esports orgs, sometimes literally is down the street.
It literally is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, kind of moving into our next topic then. I think you touched a little bit on Skillshot, who I believe is doing something in this vein, and it sounds like you guys might be as well. Is there a need for a certificate program for esports coaches and directors in the scholastic space at all? And who has the authority, and how can the authority be created for a system like that?
So there's two right now. There's two certification programs right now for esport coaches. There's the middle school, high school that we do. And then there's the collegiate space with NACAD, with Jay Prescott at Iowa, National Association of Esport Coaches and Directors. That's the two I really know of right now. Then I look at, colleges. I get to be on this really great once a month phone call with like professors all across the country in esports. Dr. Seth Jenny and the International Journal of Esports, those guys, were partnered with them, and they're constantly looking for what schools are creating college certification minors and courses, and then outside the varsity program or the recreation program, but education. And they're creating this list just as much as Alex McNeil at LFG Group has got this big list of scholarships in colleges that have available spots or listings or what games they play and whatever. There's a lot of lists out there, but I said, hey, you two guys need to connect, because maybe you can make a master list of schools that have varsity programs and education programs, so you could know more.
Yeah.
And that's kind of our role in the foundation, is connect people. But I look at the who says this is the accredited group who can provide this. So I just had some really good conversations today with a professor I teach with about creating a sports officiating certification on a national level for recreation, because we've been talking about this for like 6 years, it feels like. And the same conversation always comes up. Who is the accreditor of this organization? Well, who was the accreditor of the National Plumbing Association of America? It wasn't some like governing board that was there already. It was a bunch of plumbers got together and said, we're experts, let's make a certification around this. And so that's what happens with certificate. This is literally the research we did last year, or the first of last year, was how do we create a coaching certification, and who says we are the ones that can do it? Who says we're allowed to? So we created it and we said we are. And that's what you do. And so we brought in experts. We brought in Connor Olney, who is who was the coach of Ottawa University out of Kansas.
Yeah.
And you may know from social media.
Great Call of Duty program. That's what I know him for.
Yeah. His Call of Duty TikToks that he made were pretty big. He built a bunch of content for us because he was also a director of the esports program. He started a college league. He started a college LAN center. He's worked in the pro space, pro player. So we brought a bunch of experts together, teachers and educators and professionals in the esports space, and said, what information do people need, and why do they need it?
Yeah.
And let's say this is certification, and we've got dozens and dozens of people taking the certification, every month, saying, this is what I need to help maybe my program get started, so I can prove this is a legit thing to my administrators, or I'm doing it and I want to get more professional development, and I want to get this on my signature line, or I want to have this as a way to be better educated to help my kids with college opportunities. So that's really what it was. We were honestly having the same conversations over and over. So we just turned everything into video on demand and said, watch this before you talk to me, because that'll save us the 25 minutes of our 30-minute call of telling you who Ninja is. When you can actually watch this video. So is there a accrediting body? Yeah, right now it's just me and Jay from NACAD, because we were the ones who just have the education, because we're both teachers, and we wanted to create this, and we just knew how. But there's room for more. Like, let's create more. Like, let's all do more. So that's kind of what our network was for, was to like, who else? What other certifications can we provide? We brought in, healthy gaming experts to talk about health and wellness and stretching, and the curriculum writers out of Wichita who created the gaming concepts curriculum. So it's just like, let's all do this together, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. I love the idea that there's so much room in the space, and that no matter what, if another organization gets created, it could just serve, like the three people that really need that one particular organization that services them. It's a really,
Yeah.
it feels like esports sometimes gets so competitive, so it's really awesome to hear the idea of just more programs is better for the people that we're actually serving. I wanted to talk about a little bit about kind of the people we are serving, which is students, and kind of a two-parter question here. One, do you think esports degrees currently have a place in the scene yet for career-seeking individuals? And then secondly, do you have any advice you can give to students that are seeking careers in the esports field?
Yeah. So the second part, yeah, I mean, I'll answer the second part first. The careers you have, if you look at NASIF's chart, you basically take out gamer out of the middle and put NFL or NBA, and it's the same type of jobs. It's commentator or shoutcaster. But how to get there is you can either get a sports degree or a communications degree to be a shoutcaster or journalism and be there. And that's literally what people have been doing, because there hasn't been, up until the last few years, esports segmented degrees or certification programs at college or learning modules or anything. And that's where all of it, the esports industry is a bunch of people coming from those segments of communication or event planning or tech or IT or audio video. And we are all nerding it up and building the esports industry now. Like, okay, well, what can we specifically focus on esports event management or esports communication, and providing those verticals and those kind of programs at different colleges to support those students. There's other ways. I mean, you can be an influencer, right? You can be an influencer, you can be a streamer, and you can be a YouTube star. But every 6-year-old wants to be a YouTube star, just as much as I wanted to play basketball when I had Michael Jordan's poster on my wall as a kid. In 1992, I wanted to be on the dream team, and I went to basketball camp. And now it's Ninja on your wall, or it's Tim the Tatman doing fall damage or something. I have no idea. Like people want to be these people, or they want to be somebody on YouTube, or everybody, and you can create it. That's the benefit of live streaming, YouTube, and content creation. We're a more globalized society rather than living in tribes and living in with 50 people and only knowing 50 people. Now we have the ability to tell our story to a lot more people, which there's struggles with that in social media, as if you watch like things like Social Dilemma on Netflix, or where that they tell you what you should click and keeping you online. And there's another group we work with, Bark, that does I have a video, a show on YouTube called Childhood 2.0, and it really looks at like what kids are struggling with in a social media world and all sorts of addictions. So to go back here, colleges and programs and certifications and courses and minors, there was probably 10, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, and now there's over 100. That group I sit in with all those professors around the country, we're trying to make that list of what programs are doing it and what programs are doing it well. But it was interesting to listen to what I didn't consider the term they used, one of these professors used, is I had talked about how there's some schools that are just slapping a E on a communications course and calling it a minor.
Yeah.
And saying, we got an esports minor, everybody come take this because esports is sexy and we're going to get you in, and we're going to, whatever, if it's a state school or not a state school, you're going to spend tuition dollars. And you didn't have people like you and me, Paul, being nerds and helping educate people what esports was in communication. It was a professor teaching a communication course and then saying, hey, we got this segment on esports. And so this professor on this call was like, that's predatorial. That's just not working. And so there's some colleges doing that because they see sexiness and they see industry. But there's a lot of great colleges doing it well. And I'm helping my alma mater, Oklahoma State University, just north of you, build a certification. And then the school I teach at, we were just talking about esports certification here in Kansas City. And there's great people like UCI, California Domingo Hills. I'm sure you guys are into stuff right now. I honestly don't know. Hopefully, I mean, obviously Jeff's doing the stuff with that lab. So yes.
Yeah.
But the schools, the schools are preparing for it, and it's another COVID thing, right? Like it's expedited even more. Like
Yeah.
we realized we need to do this, but all those jobs are still available in esports that are available in pretty much every other field. Like you need accountants in esports,
Yeah.
right? And it's just there. We're gonna be in 5 years. I'm gonna stop having to do panels talking to a bunch of people that I do every week with new people to esports, saying, esports is about this, and tell them about ninja and arenas. And in 5 years, we won't have to have those conversations anymore, because hopefully people will get it and it'll be a household name. And I look back at 2000, and maybe we shouldn't have called it esports. We should have called it competitive gaming, and maybe that would change how we look at what our industry is.
Yeah.
It's just where we are now, and we may have a new name for it in 5 years. We may call it something cool like Flibbity Jib. I have no idea. We're gonna have some new name, because maybe it'll evolve, and that's okay, because there's no ceiling on esports, and it's growing exponentially. And the bell curve we're at early adoption, and you better get in now.
Yeah. I think that's a really good place to kind of put a cap on everything. I like the positivity at the end here. I just want to throw it to you really quick and ask you if there's anything you'd like to plug, any websites, social medias people can follow you on, shows you got coming up you like to throw out there.
Yeah, Paul. No, it's been great, man. This is the stuff I get to talk about. I love talking about it, and I can talk, obviously. I would say our foundation, the Varsity Esports Foundation, is really created out of necessity to help Black, Indigenous people of color, specifically in urban core areas. Like that was our main focus. And also in rural, where people like James O'Hagan out of Wisconsin, he says internet should be a utility for people, for especially kids that are doing online learning. And I look at these two segments of kids who don't have the same access to kids in suburbs like I did when I lived in Oklahoma City, and my friends in Edmond had access to great education, and I didn't. Not to bash my school, but we were focused on discipline, unfortunately, and that's how it was, and keeping us in school. And so I feel that. And when I talk to these schools that we work with, that are Title I and low income schools, and they're just struggling to find a way to keep kids engaged. And esports, 97% of kids play video games, helps their GPA, helps them be engaged, helps raise their attendance, because they don't want to throw a ball or play an instrument or be in debate or on drama. So they could not be just a gamer, but they could also be the IT kid or the shoutcaster. And so we're asking, as a foundation, as a nonprofit, instead of companies out there trying to make a big splash and putting their logo on some event, make a more meaningful impact and invest in the kids in the future and help them with STEM education through our STEM accredited programs. And you can donate to us at Varsity Esports Foundation, and we'd love to have your support, because the more dollars we have, the more dollars we can give away.
Love it. Love to hear it. It just all ties back into the service, and the more services there is, the better opportunities that are out there for those that are being serviced. Well, that's going to probably wrap up this episode. We're going to be able to find links to all of that, or I guess the website, and I'll probably link your LinkedIn or Twitter or something in the description as well. Thanks once again to our sponsors. This has been Esports Playmakers episode 7. Remember to subscribe to keep up with the show, and we will see you guys next time.